Hello, students, and welcome to this course on an introduction to assessments. Um, I would like you to watch the video to the end. It's only 10 minutes, and I will talk about your first big assignment at the end. So my name is Maria Reed, and I'm going to be your instructor. I like you to excuse the quality of this first video because I'm not too expert at doing this. So today I'm going to be giving a mini lecture on mental status exams. I'm going to talk briefly about what it actually is, how you can do one, and then about how you go about writing this all up in a single paragraph. And finally, we'll talk about that first big exam again. So, what is a mental status exam? It's actually observations, not an examination in the academic sense, but an examination of the client's appearance and activities in the brief time that you spend with them, what it feels like to sit with the client. So you do not usually ask a lot of direct questions directly related to the mental status exam, but you make a judgment based on your observations of their overall behavior, their cognition, emotions, appearance, etc. And the mental status exam is very helpful in diagnosis and making treatment plans. So there are 6 different components. In different settings, you might actually see slightly different sections in the MSE, but for our purposes, this is what is consistent with the form that we're going to be using in the class. So first is their appearance, behavior, and activities. Give a objective opinion of the client's overall appearance. So I would ask myself things like, are their clothes clean? Are they wrinkled? Are they appropriate for the setting? Is their hair clean and appropriately groomed? Does it look like they've washed their face, cleaned their nails? It doesn't matter if their clothes are old or out of date. Also, in this section, you may want to take a note of um, their psychometric activity, their posture, their are they fidgeting, things like that. So, are they making eye contact? I forgot that one. Or are they just sitting rigid without moving? Most of us, when we talk, we move our hands, we use our face expressively. So if those things are absent, you should note them as well. So the next thing we typically talk about is mood and affect. Now, as you know, as counseling students, these two are not the same. The mood is the client's reported emotional state. And this is typically a direct question you would ask during the interview. How do you feel today? Affect is the external expression of one's emotional state. This may be visible in their tone, in their facial expression. This may or may not match their mood. But this is something you would report. For example, let's say you have a client who says that they're depressed, but they spend much of the time laughing and joking, and they appear happy. We would typically describe, then you would say that their affect was incongruous with their stated mood. Now, when we talk about or describe affects, we typically use words such as normal, labile, meaning it's changing a lot up and down, flat, restricted, blunted. Those 3 are reductions in a normal affect, quite the opposite of labile, sorry. Now, think about their speech. Note anything that is extraordinary or weird. For example, is a person speaking in a very loud tone or very quiet? Is their speech very flat and monotonal? Things that are not typical or incongruent with the mood or affect or their appearance. Now, thought process is how the client is actually thinking. Are they ruminating? Are they using circumstantiality, word salads, neologisms? Are they logical, obsessive, preoccupied, delusional even? This kind of information you would get as you're doing the intake. You always ask about suicidality and homicidality, and make sure to add a sentence about this in your report. Abnormalities in sensory perception, things like auditory or visual hallucinations, these also should be added in. Cognition refers to their actual mental processing and their intelligence, reasoning, memory, these kinds of things. Are they oriented to time, person, and place? And you can ask things like, what is today's date? Who is the current president? Where are we now? Can they concentrate? Do they have issues with processing speed? It is difficult to talk about actual intelligence in here, but you can give a cursory overview, such as client's memory and ability to concentrate appears to be compromised. But this may be because of XYZ, and further assessment is needed. So, in the last area, which is insight and judgment, is about the client's awareness of their current status. Is a client making good decisions? Are they impulsive? Are they making risky decisions? You can have clients who have some awareness of what is going on, or others who have total, total none. They have no idea why they're there. In most of these, you can report impairment in judgment or insight, and make sure to back everything up with examples. You can say a client's judgment appears to be compromised as evidence of self-report of driving while intoxicated twice a week. So while you are conducting the mental status exam, you try to establish some form of rapport. You try to make the environment and the meeting as comfortable as possible. Make sure that you're observing nonverbal cues, their body language, the way they hold themselves, things like that. You try to and ask more open-ended questions, and this allows the client time and space to explore. And it also will allow them to start talking about different scenarios wherein you can see those things like the thought content and how they're actually processing information, right? So try to be objective, not necessarily judgmental, and take notes, okay? You also have to be somewhat cognitive of cultural differences, right? So, for example, there are certain cultures who use their hands a lot, um, and you should be aware of this. So you may have a client who's moving their hands a lot as they talk, and that's not necessarily an indication that they are labor. It just may be a cultural differences. On the other hand, uh, try not to avoid stereotypes as much as possible, right? If you need confirmatory information, then don't be afraid to ask, okay? Now for the writing part. Okay. So when we're writing the mental status exam, we always do it in one paragraph, not bullets. Okay, one continuous paragraph. It may be a little longer than normal, but you put everything together so all that information is there. I would report both congruent and incongruent information. For example, the mood was congruent with the affect, or the alternative, the mood was not congruent with the affect. And make sure to give quotes and examples so that you can further explain without specifically explaining what you're talking about. Okay. So let's talk now about the group assessment labs. Okay. You have 5 throughout the whole semester, and they have significant numbers of parts. Ultimately, only 4 will count towards your final grade. So the first part of it is doing the role play, and creating the videos within your groups, and that is going to be submitted on Canvas. There's 5 people in each group, so you will each take the turn of playing the role of the assessor and the client. For each one of the videos, there's different scenarios that you've been given. So you pick the scenario that you like the best, and then you do the video. Now, when you're doing a video, you're going to submit one video each. Let's call them sessions. Each session should be about 10 minutes, and it doesn't have to be that long. And it's not something that I want you to be practicing, right? So you're not making multiple videos, okay? Do it once. Just be prepared with the questions that you want to ask. And it's almost going to be as if it's a real session for you, because when you're doing these examinations, you don't get a second take, right? So don't just think of them as practice sessions. Okay. Now, once you do the video and you submit it, you now have the write-up part. So each one of the assignments, I'm going to give you some kind of assessment or write-up instructions or reports to be done. And this part you're going to be submitting on Critic. Now, once you submit it on Critic, you are going to evaluate your peers, and then you're going to look at the feedback that you got. Okay. Now, you're going to have about a week to submit the initial write-up, and then you would have about 3 days for each of the other parts. Okay. And that's it for today. And I'll see you next week. Bye.